The rain had been non-stop that evening, falling in long silver lines across the windows of their small apartment. The world outside felt heavy, but inside, the silence was even heavier. Daniel sat at the edge of the couch, hands trembling, his backpack still on his shoulders. He hadn't taken it off since he got home. Instead, he kept staring at the crumpled piece of paper sticking out from its zipper, the one he wished he could burn, tear, hide, anything. His father, Aaron, stood near the kitchen counter, arms folded. He was a man who had always looked unshakable, broad shoulders, tired eyes, hands that carried the weight of years working construction. But tonight, even he seemed unsure. He watched his son with cautious eyes, sensing that something was wrong long before Daniel opened his mouth. The boy finally swallowed, reached into his bag, and handed his father the paper. It was a report card, red marks, low grades, a teacher's handwritten comment at the bottom. Daniel is falling behind. He seems to have stopped trying. Aaron didn't speak at first. He took a long breath, the kind that fills a room with tension. Daniel kept his gaze glued to the floor. He was bracing himself for anger, disappointment, maybe even shouting. That's what most kids feared. But the silence was worse, because Aaron Hale's disappointment was never loud. It was quiet, heavy, like rain soaking into earth. "How long have you been hiding this?" Aaron finally asked. Daniel's voice cracked. 3 weeks. Why? Because I knew you'd be mad. And because... His voice broke completely. Because I failed, Dad. Aaron sat down slowly, placing the report card on the coffee table between them. Thunder rolled somewhere far off, the kind of low rumble that makes a room feel small. He watched his son carefully, this boy he had raised alone for 6 years. Daniel had always been sensitive, thoughtful, too hard on himself, and Aaron had always been afraid that one day the world would crush that softness. "You know what hurts me the most?" Aaron said quietly. Daniel didn't answer. "That you thought failure would make me love you less." Daniel's head snapped up, tears pooling in his eyes. I didn't want to disappoint you." Aaron leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. "Listen to me. Failure isn't the end of you. It's the beginning of who you can become." Daniel shook his head, the words bouncing off the wall he had built inside his own chest. "Not for me. I'm not smart like the other kids. I study and forget everything. I mess up. I get in my own way. And you always succeed. You've never failed." At that, something in Aaron's expression shifted. It wasn't anger, and it wasn't pity. It was a memory, one he had buried deeper than he meant to. "Daniel, sit with me." The boy hesitated, then moved to the couch. Aaron took the paper again, studying it, then placed it carefully on the table. His voice came out low, steady. "Do you know the biggest failure of my life?" Daniel blinked in confusion. "You failed at something?" Aaron let out a humorless laugh. "More things than I can count." He stood up, walked to the closet, and came back with a dusty wooden box. Daniel had never seen it before. Aaron sat beside him again, lowered the box onto the coffee table, and opened it. Inside were old photos, bent certificates, and a medal, its ribbon faded but still intact. Daniel touched the medal gently. "What's this?" "My biggest dream, and my biggest failure." He lifted the medal, letting it catch the kitchen light. His thumb grazed the worn surface. "I won this when I was your age. I was the fastest runner in school. Everyone said I'd go far, maybe even become a professional athlete one day." His thumb grazed the worn surface. "But I quit. After one loss, one race, one moment." Daniel stared. "You quit because you failed once?" Aaron nodded slowly. "I let fear of failing again stop me from trying at all." The boy looked at him differently now, almost as if seeing him for the first time. "I thought success was everything. I thought failing made me weak. But I didn't understand something important. Losing once doesn't mean you lose forever. But quitting..." He paused. Quitting ends the story. Daniel swallowed hard. So, what do I do? Aaron put a hand on his son's shoulder. You get back up. We fix this together. Daniel's lips trembled. But what if I fail again? Aaron pulled him close, his voice steady, almost fierce. Then you stand up again and again and again, because I'm not raising a boy who never falls. I'm raising a boy who never stays down. Outside, the rain softened. Inside, something began to shift, something that felt like the beginning of hope. Daniel wiped his eyes, nodding slowly. Okay, I'll try again. Aaron smiled for the first time that night. No, you won't try. He squeezed his shoulder. You will train. For the first time, Daniel didn't feel like a failure. He felt like he had a partner, a guide, a father who wasn't perfect, but who had lived enough mistakes to teach him how to survive his own. This wasn't the end of Daniel's story. It was the first page.
The next morning began differently. Normally, Daniel woke up slowly, dragging himself through the routine of a boy who felt out of place in his own skin. But this time, he sat up before the alarm even buzzed. His father's words echoed in his head like a quiet charge. I'm not raising a boy who never falls. I'm raising a boy who never stays down. He felt something he hadn't felt in months. Purpose. Not confidence. Not certainty. Just purpose. And that was enough. When he walked into the kitchen, the smell of eggs and toast greeted him. Aaron stood at the counter, sleeves rolled up, eyes alert. He was already dressed for work, steel-toe boots on his feet, muscle memory in every movement. You're up early, Aaron said, without turning. I want to start today. That made Aaron pause. He looked over his shoulder, half smiling. Good. Eat first. Training on an empty stomach is for stubborn fools. Daniel grinned softly. It was the first real smile between them in days. After breakfast, before the sun had even reached its full height, Aaron led Daniel outside. The air was crisp, touched with the leftover chill of last night's rain. Puddles glimmered under the light. Aaron pointed to the small parking lot behind their building, a square of pavement framed by faded white lines. This, he said, is where we start. Daniel nodded, adjusting his backpack straps nervously. What do I do? Aaron stepped forward, his voice steady and patient. We build discipline first. Confidence comes after. Start with 20 laps around the lot. Not fast, not slow, just steady. Daniel stared at the perimeter. 20? Yes, Aaron said. Because I'm not training you to win. I'm training you to endure. Daniel swallowed. He placed his feet on the pavement and began to jog. Awkward, uneven, but determined. Aaron watched silently, arms crossed, jaw firm, but eyes soft. Every few laps, Daniel glanced at him, unsure whether he was doing well or failing again. Don't look at me, Aaron called. Why? Because this isn't for me. It's for you. Daniel looked ahead again. Lap by lap, his breath grew heavier. By lap 14, his legs wobbled. By lap 16, his throat burned. By lap 18, every voice of doubt returned. You're slow. You're weak. You mess everything up. He slowed to a walk. Aaron walked to him, not disappointed, not angry, but steady. You're not done, he said. Daniel's breathing trembled. Dad, I can't. Aaron knelt to his level, eyes firm. You can. You're just scared. Scared that trying and failing again will hurt. But listen to me, Daniel. Every champion you admire has felt this exact pain. The only difference is they decided to keep moving anyway. Daniel's eyes filled. Then why does it feel impossible? Because you're doing something important. Important things never feel easy. Daniel nodded slowly. And without another word, he started running again. He finished lap 20 on shaking legs, but standing. That evening, as he lay on the couch, exhausted but strangely proud, he watched his father fix dinner. Aaron hummed under his breath, a habit he had when he was calm. The house felt lighter, almost warmer. "Dad," Daniel asked. "Yeah? What happens next? For training, I mean." Aaron smirked. "You're not done with today yet." Daniel blinked. "What?" "But I ran." Training your body is half the work. Training your mind is the other half. He pointed toward the kitchen table. A stack of old workbooks sat there. Math, reading comprehension, science, all subjects Daniel struggled with. The boy's stomach twisted. "Dad, I always fail at this part." Aaron wiped his hands, sat across from him, and leaned in. "You failed before because you were fighting alone. You're not alone now." The sentence hit Daniel deeper than anything else. They began studying together. At first, it was frustrating. Daniel messed up small problems. Aaron corrected him patiently, sometimes too patiently, sometimes with tired sighs, but never with anger. Every time Daniel said, "I can't," Aaron answered with, "Try again. Find another way. Don't quit on yourself." Hours passed. They solved 5 questions. Not a lot, not impressive, but for Daniel it was 5 more than he believed he could do. And sometimes progress is not measured in speed, but in belief. For weeks the routine continued. Morning runs, after-school studying, nighttime review, small victories, big frustrations. 1 step back, 5 steps forward. And a father who refused to let his son collapse under the weight of old fears. Little by little, Daniel began to change. He woke up earlier, he focused more, he stopped calling himself a failure. He even asked questions in class, something he had never done before. His teacher noticed, his classmates noticed. But the biggest change was inside him. He didn't avoid hard things anymore. He didn't hide his mistakes. He didn't fear failure like he used to. The real test came 2 months later. A big exam. The same subject that crushed him before. On that morning, Daniel stood at the doorway in his freshly washed hoodie, backpack zipped properly, hair still damp from a nervous shower. He felt his heart pounding, but for the first time, it wasn't fear. It was readiness. Aaron stood behind him, adjusting the boy's collar like he used to when Daniel was little. "Remember," he said, "the grade is not the victory." Daniel looked up. "What is?" Aaron smiled, slow, warm, proud. "The victory is showing up again after you fell." Daniel nodded, stepped outside, took a deep breath, and walked to school with the posture of someone who had climbed out of his own darkness. When he came home that day, he didn't look scared. He looked satisfied. Aaron took down his tools. "How'd it go?" Daniel shrugged, but a small smile fought his way onto his lips. "I didn't give up." Aaron's chest warmed. "That's my boy." Daniel really believed it.
The results would take another week, but something in Daniel had already shifted. He no longer walked through school with his shoulders curled inward. He didn't avoid eye contact with teachers. He didn't hide in the back row, hoping no one would call on him. He wasn't a different boy, he was a boy building himself again. And rebuilding isn't instant. It's slow, uneven, messy. Every afternoon, Aaron waited at the small wooden desk they shared, textbooks open, coffee steaming beside him. For the first time in Daniel's life, the table didn't represent fear or pressure. It represented partnership. Tonight, though, something was different. Daniel walked in exhausted. His backpack hung lower than usual. His steps dragged. When he dropped it to the floor, Aaron immediately knew. "Long day?" he asked. Daniel sank into the chair. "Yeah." "No running today," Aaron said gently. "Sit. Breathe." The boy nodded, rubbing his forehead. For a moment, the room was quiet except for the distant sound of cars passing outside. After a minute, Aaron leaned forward. "You look like you're carrying a weight. Want to tell me?" Daniel hesitated, picking at a chip on the table's edge. "Dad, I tried answering questions in class today 3 times. That's good. I got all 3 wrong." Aaron's eyebrows raised. "And?" Daniel blinked. "And everyone stared at me." Aaron sighed softly, not from frustration, but empathy. "That's part of the fight, son. Failing publicly is harder than failing alone." Daniel looked down. "I felt stupid." "You weren't stupid. You were brave." I swallowed. "But it still hurt." "I know." The boy's voice cracked. "Sometimes I feel like I'm climbing a wall that keeps getting taller." Aaron nodded slowly. "That's because you haven't reached the top yet." Daniel's eyes lifted. "And walls feel tallest right before you overcome them." Daniel didn't respond, but something in his expression eased. Later that evening, they began their usual study session. But Daniel was unfocused today. His leg bounced under the table, his pencil tapped nervously, his mind wandered. Every time he misread a question or got an answer wrong, his breath hitched, and shame flickered across his face like a shadow passing through light. Finally, his frustration snapped. "I can't do this," he yelled, shoving the workbook away. "I don't get it. I try and try and try, and I still don't get it." The sudden burst of emotion shocked him more than his father. Aaron looked at him calmly, not flinching. "Then tell me where you're stuck." "I'm stuck everywhere," Daniel shouted, tears rushing forward. "I'm doing everything you say. I'm studying more than ever. I'm listening. I'm trying, really trying, but the answers still don't make sense to me." He kicked the chair back, breathing heavily. "I'm tired, Dad. I'm really, really tired." Aaron stood slowly and kneeled beside him. "Daniel, fighting doesn't mean you won't feel tired. Fighting means you rest, then keep going." "But what if I'm not strong enough?" Daniel whispered. Aaron placed both hands on his son's trembling shoulders. "Then I'll be strong with you," he said. Those words, simple, steady, unbreaking, cut straight through Daniel's despair. He exhaled shakily, wiping his face with his sleeve. Aaron slid the workbook back across the table. "Let's tackle it differently." They spent the next hour breaking each question into smaller pieces. Aaron didn't rush him. He didn't pressure him. He didn't judge him. He guided him, corrected him softly, encouraged him, and every time Daniel got something right, Aaron smiled, not big, not overly proud, just enough for Daniel to feel it. That night, after studying, they went outside for a short walk. The moon hung low and the neighborhood was quiet. The cold evening air helped Daniel's chest release the tension built up during the day. "Dad," Daniel said suddenly. "Yeah?"
Why why didn't you push me like this before? Why only now? Aaron took a long breath. Because I didn't know how. Daniel frowned. Aaron stared up at the night sky. When your mother passed, I broke inside. I wanted to protect you from everything, from pain, from fear, from failure. So I avoided telling you how hard life could be. I thought being gentle meant keeping you safe. He paused. But I realized something. Protecting someone from failure isn't love. Teaching them how to rise from it, that's love. Daniel's eyes softened. I never thought of it like that. Aaron placed a hand on his son's back. I failed you once. By not preparing you, I'm not failing you again. Daniel nodded quietly. The streetlights glowed in warm halos around them, and for a long moment, father and son walked without speaking, the silence no longer heavy, just shared. Over the next few days, Daniel kept training. The running got smoother, the studying got clearer. The frustration didn't disappear, but he learned how to push through it. He was becoming someone he didn't know he could be. One night during study, Daniel paused mid-sentence. He stared at a math problem, eyes narrowing. He began solving it, slowly, carefully. Aaron watched him. Halfway through, Daniel gasped softly. Dad, I get it. And he did. He solved the entire question without help. Not perfectly, not quickly, but on his own. He looked up, eyes wide, face brightening with disbelief. Aaron smiled, small, proud, warm. There, that feeling you have right now, that's what happens when you don't give up. Daniel grinned through teary eyes. I didn't think I'd ever feel this. That's because you've never fought this hard before. Daniel nodded slowly, and for the first time in his life, he felt capable. The exam results would come soon. But Daniel already knew something. Whatever the result was, he wouldn't quit. Not now, not ever. Because he had learned the truth. Failure wasn't the end, it was the training ground. And he wasn't facing it alone.
The school hallways buzzed with a mix of nerves and excitement. Today was the day the exam results came out. Students crowded around the bulletin boards, pulling papers, whispering, laughing, panicking. It was chaos wrapped in fluorescent lighting. Daniel stood at the entrance, frozen for a moment. His fingers shook in the sleeves of his hoodie. His heartbeat drummed in a slow, deliberate rhythm that didn't match anyone else's. He wasn't afraid of the grade anymore, not like before, but there was still a knot in his stomach, a memory of every time failure had crushed him. He forced himself forward. His shoes squeaked lightly on the polished floor as he made his way through the masses of kids leaning over each other. He found the paper marked Class 7B Exam Results. His name was halfway down. He inhaled. Slowly, he ran his eyes across the line. Not perfect, not top of the class, not even close. But for the first time in a long time, he had passed. A real pass. A solid, undeniable, earned pass. The air left his lungs in one shaky exhale. A weight lifted off his chest so suddenly that he had to hold onto the wall for balance. He blinked, holding back tears, not because the score was high, but because he wasn't defeated. He had climbed the wall. He had stood back up. He had made it to the other side. He pressed his forehead lightly against the cold wall tile and whispered, I did it. When he reached home, he didn't walk. He half ran, half floated down the hall, breathless with the kind of joy that felt almost unreal. Aaron was on the couch with his tool belt beside him and a sandwich halfway eaten. He looked up as Daniel burst in. You all right? He asked, startled. Daniel didn't answer. He walked straight to his father and handed him the paper with trembling hands. Aaron unfolded it slowly. His eyes scanned the page. His jaw tightened. His breath caught. Not because the score was high, but because the score was higher than fear, higher than quitting,
higher than the shadow Daniel used to live under. Aaron's eyes lifted to his son's, and something soft, warm, and unguarded broke through. "You did this?" he whispered. Daniel nodded. "Yeah, I did." Aaron stood up, and for the first time in years, he hugged his son so tightly that Daniel almost lost his breath. It wasn't a polite hug. It wasn't a quick pat on the back. It was the kind of embrace a father gives when he finally sees his child not as fragile, but as rising. "I'm proud of you," Aaron murmured, voice thick. "More than you know." Daniel pressed his face against his father's shoulder, trying not to cry. But he did anyway. They both did. That evening they went back to the empty parking lot where the training began. "You ready?" Aaron asked with a grin. "For what?" Daniel laughed. Aaron pointed to the perimeter. "1 lap." Daniel smirked. "Just one?" "Just one," Aaron said. "But this time, you run like someone who knows he won't break." Daniel stretched his arms, cracked his knuckles, and took his position. "On your mark?" Aaron said dramatically. Daniel shook his head. "Dad, this isn't a race." Aaron smiled. "Life kinda is." Daniel laughed. Then he ran. 1 lap. Easy. Smooth. Effortless. He didn't run like the scared boy who started months ago. He ran like someone who trusted his own legs, his own breath, his own resilience. When he finished, he jogged back, cheeks flushed, breathing steady. Aaron nodded in approval. "See? You're built for more than you think." Daniel grinned. "Yeah, I guess I am." A few days later, something unexpected happened. Daniel's teacher called. "Aaron," she said warmly, "I want to tell you something. During class today, Daniel helped another student with a math problem, the same kind he struggled with before. He explained it patiently, step by step, and he didn't give up on her." Aaron helped something bloom in his chest. Pride, yes, but also awe. Because helping someone else climb the wall means you've learned how to climb it yourself. That evening, Daniel walked into the kitchen to find his father staring at a small wooden box, the same one from weeks ago, filled with Aaron's old dreams. "You okay?" Daniel asked. Aaron nodded. "Sit." Daniel sat beside him. Aaron held the old running medal delicately, the faded ribbon dangling from his fingers. "You know," he began, "I used to think this was proof I was meant for something." His voice softened. "Now I know it was proof of something else." "What?" Daniel asked. "That even if life knocks you down, you stand up again." Daniel swallowed, cheeks warming. "You taught me that." Aaron laughed softly. "You taught me too. Watching you fight, seeing you refuse to quit, it reminded me what I forgot." Daniel smiled. "Does that mean you're going to start running again?" Aaron smirked. "Let's not get carried away." They both laughed. A real laugh. Easy. Shared. Later that night, Daniel hung the report card on the fridge, not because the grade was amazing, but because it represented something greater. Growth. Effort. Endurance. He placed a small sticky note above it. Not perfect, but earned. Aaron read it from the doorway. "That," he said, voice full of pride, "is the best grade I've ever seen." Before bed, Daniel paused at his mirror and looked at himself, not with frustration, not with doubt, but with quiet confidence. He wasn't the smartest kid, he wasn't the fastest, he wasn't the strongest, but he was no longer the kid who quit. He whispered to his reflection, "I don't stay down anymore." And somewhere in the house, Aaron whispered the same words to himself, because in teaching his son to never give up, he had learned how to stand back up too.